The Ukrainian military is significantly smaller than the Russians, but nevertheless, it's a country of 46 million people, and even civilians as well as officials are training to fight, and many have already been trained in advance. So you have a civilian population prepared militarily, they have experience. Some of them participated as volunteers against separatists for the last 8 years. The other issue, of course, is that they're also highly motivated to fight, whereas many of the Russian soldiers essentially gave up or abandoned vehicles, and some of them ran off, some of them surrendered themselves. Many of them did not even know where they were exactly being deployed and for what specific purpose.
Sorry, Irina, but when we say many like the Russian invades with so many forces, and how much many they surrendered from the Russian army?
They've been able to capture 200 people in just a couple of days, which is a lot considering that the Russians were expecting complete surrender from Ukraine in one day, and 3,000 people on the Russian side have already been killed, and we know it's an official number. In fact, Russia has asked Kazakhstan for assistance with a number of troops, with deploying troops, and Kazakhstan rejected participating in the invasion. But that shows you that even with foreign fighters that Russia has recruited, which includes a small number of Belarus, Chechens, special Chechen forces that they're using, as well as even volunteers or recruits from Armenia and other places, they don't have a sufficient number of people to sustain operations past the few days maximum that they were planning on being there.
So I think that the Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian people will manage to stop Russia from entering Kiev?
They have already entered Kiev, and there's been Russian infiltrations and fights on the street. They actually even sent about 60 combatants who were wearing Ukrainian uniforms and using Ukrainian vehicles as saboteurs. But that group of people was repelled by civilian population, by the way. Mm-hmm. And they've also been able to down a number of airplanes and blow up approximately 80 tanks, if not more by now. Mm-hmm. Essentially, the other issue with the Russian side is because they were counting on a very short operation, mm-hmm. They did not have sufficient supplies. They mm-hmm. had a number of missiles that they had already deployed against Ukrainian cities, mm-hmm. but missiles take time to produce and create to transport.
Okay, do you think that the arms sales or arm assistance to Ukraine will help Ukraine to stop this invasion?
Absolutely, it's helpful. The most helpful thing right now would be the appearance of Stingers. Apparently, Netherlands is delivering about 200, but at least 500 more is needed. Stingers and anything that can be used against missiles and against airplanes is right now the first priority.
So about the sanctions that Mr. Biden declared yesterday and the European Union declared the day before, do you think it's capable of stopping Russia from invading other countries?
As of now, those sanctions are not sufficient. Well, it will be more helpful if the United States also joins them, because if the US also freezes Russia out of its own financial system, that's going to be a significant blow. But all of these sanctions take at least 10 to 15 days to implement and about a month to start having a serious impact.
But any sanctions related to SWIFT will have an impact on the European countries and the US itself.
Of course, some level of effect is going to have, and the more the economy is intertwined with Russia, the more impact it will have. But Russia actually has a very small economy, and most of its operations are done through private means, through oligarchs and through people who are already now being sanctioned on an individual basis. So yes, those who've been involved in those operations will certainly suffer if they continue doing business with them, but all of this was expected, and many of them may have already taken measures to protect themselves from the impact of these sanctions.
Finally, what do you expect in the coming few days?
All of that really depends on the speed of delivery of weapons to Ukraine. Right now, this is basically a race against time for both parties. Basically, Russia may have no more than 10 days before it starts suffering significant shortage of weapons and significant loss of morale, and not to mention the impact of various other sanctions that are being imposed. A combination of these factors may force it to the negotiation table. It will still continue probably making demands for territorial concessions, but it will be in a significantly worse position to make any demands. For Ukraine, it needs to survive bombardments and missile attacks for the next 3 to 4 days at least before Russia starts running out of missiles. They were also calculating that the president would flee the country, and there's been some pressure from the United States on Zelensky to leave, even it continued through today, but that's been a major impediment to Russia, because so long as the government is seen as confident in a possibility of victory, even cities that are under heavy impact from missile attacks are not likely to surrender. And that's where the time comes into play. If in the next few days Russia does not get a major delivery of missiles, it will lose a major military advantage against Ukrainians, while Ukrainians will be gaining ground in terms of the weapons from NATO, from the United States and others coming through.